of privacy. I think the moment when I first realized how very important privacy was in my life was when I was suddenly deprived of it to a large extent. And that was in 1968 when I went on anthropological fieldwork with my wife Jill to a remote village in the Annapurna Mountains in central Nepal among the Gurungs. And when we arrived in the village, we were given a little house, and we lived downstairs mostly. And when we came to examine the door, there was no lock, there was no key, there was nothing. And from then on, for the next 15 months, we realized that we had no privacy. At any time, day or night, the door would creak open and children or adults would come in and just sit down. This happened especially in the evenings when they would pile into our house, and if we asked occasionally why they were there, they would say, well, the worst thing in this village is loneliness, to be alone in the evenings, so we're keeping you company. And the same thing happened when we went off at the weekends for our rest and escape from the pressures of the village to a little stream to swim and wash our clothes and things. And we had to really be quite rude and dissuade groups of young people who said, we would be lonely on our rest day and would like to accompany us. And we discovered this with a shock. And again, I discovered it to a certain extent in Japan, certainly historically, where it was clear that mixed nude bathing, openness to others, and the houses themselves were very traditionally very fragile, made of paper and bamboo, and open to other people. So I discovered that most of the world, and this applied obviously to China and India and so on, really didn't have a strong developed sense of privacy, whereas my own civilization, England, did. That we had doors, the Englishman's home was his castle, etc., etc., and you had to be invited in. And there was a huge emphasis on this throughout my education and my cultural life. I would not expect neighbours or people in my village here suddenly to burst in and unannounced to our house or garden. And so private property, which was the pillar of capitalism in the West, and private space from others was very important, and indeed was a marker of status. In my room in King's College, Cambridge, where I taught for many years, there were a series of doors that students had to come through if they came off the main street, King's Parade. There were 7 doors between them on King's Parade and me, and this was a sign of my elevated status. But learning the benefits of privacy was something that I also learnt at my boarding schools. The second, for example, we started with hardly any privacy. We had communal baths, we had communal dormitories, a communal day room with very little space for private belongings. But gradually we were given privacy, we were given studies, we were given special facilities in studying and so on, which gave us more space. So I learnt the great joys of privacy, and this was something which our English architecture, our English gardens, our English law, our laws of privacy all put huge emphasis on. And it really is a signal and marked distinction and difference between what happens in most of the world, all peasant and tribal societies. The Nagas who we studied and so on have communal dormitories for young people and so on. And what has developed, and I think it's a very old feature of the British. Some people think it's a recent post-industrial revolution or 18th century phenomenon, but I think it goes back, and I can see it in Shakespeare and other literature right back to medieval England and before. So value your privacy.